To the US now. Billionaire businessman and TV star Donald Trump could be set to take on his biggest job yet as a candidate for US president. He's said there's a good possibility he'll run, but has made no formal announcement. Polls have him as the surprise frontrunner amongst a disorganised field of Republican candidates. In an interview with CNN, Mr Trump accused President Barack Obama of turning America into a worldwide laughingstock, saying the situation in Libya was a mess. Well, for more on this, we're joined now by Tom Switzer, who's a research associate at the United States Study Centre at the University of Sydney. Tom, thanks for coming in and joining us.
Evening, Nick.
Before I ask you for your view on Donald Trump's chances, can I ask you just to briefly explain for us where we're at in the US political cycle? The election itself is still some way off. That's
right. I mean, the presidential election won't be taking place until November of 2012, so that's about 18 months away. I think in many respects we're in the silly season of Republican presidential politics. I say Republican because they are the party that's not in the White House, so all the focus of the political media during the course of the next 6 to 12 months will be on who will be the most likely candidate for the Republican Party against President Obama next year. We're still at the very early stages of that process. I wouldn't take the Republican presidential contest too seriously until after the summer, when it's quite clear who's actually declared their hands. At this stage, it's not altogether clear who is running for president.
OK, we've seen Barack Obama perceived as having already unofficially launched his re-election campaign. This jockeying for position amongst Republican candidates, is that an indication that they're ill-prepared for this upcoming election?
Well, I think the problem with the Republican candidates at this stage is that there's no real trendsetter. There's no one really who stands out. I mean, Mitt Romney, who narrowly lost to John McCain in 2008, at this stage is the front runner. Now we have Donald Trump, who's ranked as a second place getter, followed by the former governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee. But at this stage, it's not altogether clear whether the eventual winner of the contest is actually running. There's a lot of talk that the former governor of Indiana, Mitch Daniels, could run. He has not declared his hand, nor has the popular governor of Mississippi, Haley Barbour. So I think it is a long way out before we can be serious about who will be the Republican candidate.
In fact, we often see the final nominee emerge later on.
That's true, and let's put things in historical context. Bill Clinton, no one really knew who Bill Clinton was in April 1991. No one really knew who Jimmy Carter was in April 1975, and yet both those gentlemen went on to become very successful Democratic candidates 18 months later.
All right, you've already described this as the silly season, so can I ask you then, what's your take on Donald Trump as a potential candidate?
Look, I think thanks to Donald Trump, a fringe conspiracy is now front and centre of American politics, and I mean that seriously. This is the claim that Mr Obama was born outside of the United States and would therefore be an illegitimate president. There is absolutely...
Now, this is the people that are being described as the birthers. They're talking about the birther.
That's right. And Mr Trump has got about 17, maybe 18% of the support among Republicans. This is a worrying development. This is a conspiracy theory. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever to suggest that Barack Obama was born outside of Hawaii. Many media outlets have actually broadcast and published his birth certificate details, and many of the top Hawaiian newspapers, the Honolulu Post, the Honolulu Star, they published birth notices after he was born. And indeed, if there was an iota of doubt that Barack Obama was born outside the United States, do we really think the Clinton campaign machine, Hillary and Bill and all their operatives, would not have uncovered this during the heat of the 2008 Democratic presidential primaries? There is no evidence whatsoever, and I think it hurts his campaign in the long term, and responsible Republicans are now starting to speak out against Donald Trump.
OK, but this all plays into this dynamic we have in US politics at the moment, where we have this movement, the Tea Party movement, which does tend to be attracting the fringe about it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot about the Tea Party that is good about American politics. It's cause to lower the size of government, and I think the Tea Party is tapping into a sense of economic anxiety and political estrangement that is felt all across the United States.
Often they're giving a voice, movements like this are giving a voice to people who struggle to actually explain themselves in articulate terms.
However, the problem is that some of these characters are incapable of understatement, And I think that although there are some decent members of the Tea Party who have actually got national office in the Senate, for example, Ron Paul and Rand Paul, there are a few of them who are clearly kooks and as I say, are incapable of understatement. But I think what's happening here right now is Donald Trump is trying to demonstrate his seriousness about winning over the conservative base of the Republican Party, and this might play well with some sectors of that base, but in the long term it won't win him the nomination, certainly not the presidency of the United States, I think.
Well, certainly his contribution to foreign affairs with his comments about going to Libya, that the US should just go in and take the oil.
I think, again, very unorthodox, to put it mildly, but also irresponsible. I mean, if he were really serious, he would talk about committing ground troops to Libya. Now, this would not only be in breach of the UN mandate, but it would be deeply unpopular with the American people. I mean, President Obama is not talking about committing ground troops to Libya. If anything, President Obama is trying to take the back seat to the French President Sarkozy and the British Prime Minister David Cameron. Irresponsible remarks. If those remarks were made by Sarah Palin or Mitt Romney, they'd be regarded as a gaffe. But somehow on CNN overnight, this doesn't seem to haunt Donald Trump. If anything, the media is egging him on to make more such statements.
Well, one newspaper has actually referred to him as Sideshow Don.
Well, look, he's a character. He's flamboyant, and he'll make his final announcement about his presidential ambitions in the final episode of, I think it's Celebrity Apprentice, on May 15. So no doubt that'll help boost ratings. But look, he may well run, but I don't take him seriously in the long term.
He actually has run once before. I think it was in 2000 he was a candidate.
Well, he flirted with the idea, just as Warren Beatty flirted with the idea of running for the Democratic nomination. But, you know, these guys, they create a bit of media interest, but ultimately if they prove themselves to be unserious for the job and they lack their establishment party's backing, they're not going to go anywhere.
But does this show the problem that the Republican Party is facing in the United States in trying to come up with a candidate to take on Barack Obama? They have a influential movement like the Tea Party calling for a candidate that is not too closely associated with the Democrats. Mitt Romney, for example, has been criticised because he enacted healthcare reforms that are very similar to Barack Obama's.
There's a lot of truth to that, Nick, but bear in mind, Barack Obama is definitely beatable. His approval rating is only 41%. That's his lowest level in 2.5 years in the Oval Office. He's bogged down in a deeply unpopular war in Afghanistan. He's even aggravated the liberal base of the Democrat Party by not shelving Guantanamo Bay for the terrorist detainees. And of course, meanwhile, the debt is skyrocketing. It's now $14 trillion, and a lot of it has been on his watch. So he is he is unpopular. I think he is beatable. It's just a question of whether the Republicans can get the right candidate. I mean, half the problem here is that any candidate for office needs to win over the base of their party, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans. The liberal base of the Democrats, the conservative base of the Republicans. And as Richard Nixon said, you run to the right to get the nomination of the party, then you quickly run to the centre. And that takes a very agile politician to be able to do that. I'm not convinced that Donald Trump can do that. No,
he's probably maybe just not quite up to those athletic
U-turns manoeuvres. Have to be very flexible.
Yes, indeed. What about the fundraising aspect of this? I mean, of course, Barack Obama has already got his fundraising machine up and cranked up again. Will the Republicans be able to match that, particularly if they don't have a clear...
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, bear in mind, President Obama, or Democrat candidate Obama in 2008 outspent the Republican candidate by 3-2, a couple of $100 million at least, to John McCain. So he's now aiming for an astonishing $1 billion, which is a record for any presidential candidate. I mean, one of the ironies of the campaign finance laws that were passed a few years ago that were backed by both Republicans and Democrats is that now candidates for office, for high office, actually get out earlier to raise as much money as they can before the cut-off date. And that's ironic because now you'll have more money in the American political system.
OK, Tom Switzer, thanks very much for talking us through all that.
Thanks, Nick.
Good one.